All right, so happy Tuesday, February 23rd. Can you believe it? Next week is March. So the 9 weeks is coming to a close pretty quickly here. That's kind of why I keep pushing to get work done. So I do have tutoring after school today. If you are behind and you're like, oh my God, how am I going to catch up? And usually, if you're behind in one class, you're probably behind in several classes. I'm really good at helping people prioritize, make lists, get to work, get things done. So if you need a little coaching, if you need a little direct positive intervention from Mr. Carvajal, come visit me. That's what I'm here for. That's what I'm good at. We will focus on characterization and how characters' changes affect theme and engagement. A little quick review. Most of us probably already know this, right? What's the difference between a dynamic character and a static character? Anybody know that? Probably a lot of you do. Like, oh, I've heard that before, but I don't remember. Yeah, dynamic characters are usually main characters and they change in some way that's very closely related to the theme, right? Because what a character learns, a lot of times that's the message about life and human nature. So usually the main character changes, they learn something. They come to a realization, and when they change, they're considered a dynamic character. A static character or a stock character is usually a smaller part. Like the main character has that friend that's always complaining, right? The bitchy friend. Pardon my language. Um, she's always complaining. She's always fussy. She doesn't change. She stays the same. Or the other character that's always quiet and keeps to himself. He doesn't change, right? The one that's always joking and laughing. Those are static characters. They don't change. And usually, like I said, they're secondary characters. They're friends to the main character. They don't change a lot. So that's the difference there. So, of course, I will do the work now. We're going to read the first half of a short story today, the second half of a short story tomorrow. And I really want everybody to read along and pay attention. If you're missing work, like I said, once a week, I'm going to have a makeup assignment for you. So after we're done reading this tomorrow, there will be an extra assignment you can do to replace a zero for an old assignment, an old daily assignment. So if you're worried about, oh, I should be catching up right now, no, 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 no. Pay attention to the reading today and tomorrow, and then you can do a makeup assignment to replace a zero with up to, I guess, maybe an 85 or even a 90. I think that's the way I had it set up. So keep that in mind. For today, I will read and think about how the desires, anxieties, and behaviors of characters add to a literary work's meaning, right? How the character acts changes how we view what we're reading, right? And that makes a big difference. Also, a little more review. The basic parts of a short story. We've all seen this before, 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade. Let's look at it again, 11th grade, a little refresher course, right? Freytag's pyramid is the basics of a short story. And we know the exposition, background information, the beginning, right? Setting up the characters, the setting where it's taking place, all that's at the beginning, right? And then it sets up the conflict, right? And here's the power of the story, right? The rising action. And that's what most young writers don't focus on, but you do in my class, right? You've got to build up the suspense. What's the conflict? What's going to happen? And how does it build? Things have to go wrong. The main character has to suffer and struggle, because if it's too easy, who cares, right? If you're watching a football game that's really lopsided, like the second half of the Super Bowl, I was ready to turn it off after the first half, right? Because it was lopsided. But if it had gone all the way to the end, they were tied, there's just a few seconds on the clock, there's a Hail Mary pass, oh my God, are they gonna? Right? Now you're interested because the rising action drags you up into it and you want to find out what happens. So rising action is huge, right? The climax, did they make the touchdown? Yay, it's a happy ending. Did they not make the touchdown? Oh, they're defeated. There's the climax, right? The falling action, what happens afterwards? They walk off the field in shame, their heads down, or are they screaming and running and the guy that made the pass, that caught the pass, they're carrying him off the field? It depends on what kind of story it is, right? The denouement, what happens afterwards? That's the end of the football season for my senior year, and that's how it ends. College is next. So not all stories have all these parts, right? Some of them have a surprise ending and it cuts off and there's no falling action, but you can definitely pretty much guarantee it's going to follow this pattern overall. Any questions about free text pyramid, about the parts of a short story? Message me if you have questions. Alrighty, so today is a good day. Let's do our positive affirmations because I need them even if you don't. And saying them with y'all all day long really helps me be a better man and a better teacher. So come on, say them with me. You're a good person. What are you? I am strong, confident, and successful. Yes, we are. And how do we feel about reading? I love reading. It's so much fun. And the better you get at it, the easier and truer that becomes. And how do you feel about schoolwork? The harder I work, the stronger I become. Absolutely. Okay, and a little Carvajal comedy, because y'all know how I roll. Where is it? It's here somewhere. There it is. Amal and Juan are identical twins. Their mom only carries one photo because, but she's got twins. Because if you've seen one, you've seen them all. Get it? If you've seen one, you've seen them all. Identical twins. Yeah, I know, that's dumb. Oh well, you're used to me by now, right? All right, ladies and gentlemen. So we're going to read half the story, and we're going to do a graded discussion questions. And I have the questions available to you several places. I want us to think about them before we read because it helps us focus our minds. Once again, if you're thinking of skipping this, don't do it. You're a good person. Do what's right. Pay attention. Put your phone aside. Stop playing that video game. Okay. So graded discussion. Think like a writer. Why does Roald Dahl make the main character seem like the perfect wife? And if we start reading it, the story was written in the 1950s. And back then, a lot of women did not work. If women had jobs, it was because they were not married yet, or they were older. They were teachers, they were nurses, and most women stayed home and they were homemakers. So you want to ask yourself, not just because of that, but think about as a writer, why would Roald Dahl want to make the character seem like the perfect wife? You'll explain about that. And then at the end, what description or use of figurative language has the strongest impact on the reader and why? And these are two questions that you want to think about and answer. There's no right answer, right? No right answer. It's just your opinion. So just think about it, use your imagination. Jackson's opinion may be very different from Hazel's. They can both get 100s easily, right? If they think it through, if they write enough, and they give good details and explanation. Alrighty, so let me quit yakking for a minute. Let's get to our assignment. We go into our folder here. And we were having trouble with the Google Docs. So if you're having trouble opening it, I had about 4 kids in first period that couldn't open it. Message me and I'll email you a PDF real quick. Tuesday's work, these are the same discussion questions. Come on, internet, you can do it. And as usual, it's a graded discussion, so you can't see other people's posts. If you make a blank post, so you can see other people's posts, I will give you a 60. And 4 lines equals a 70. 5 lines is an 80. 6 lines is a 90. 7 lines is 100, 7 or more, right? And I do mean computer screen lines, not phone screen lines. So you need to be sure and write more if you're writing on your cell phone. Okay, so let's go into Tuesday's work. Lamb to the Slaughter by Roald Dahl. Go and get your own copy open because I'm going to read the first part and you're going to finish on your own. It should look like this. It should look like this. So go ahead and open up your own copy. We'll start reading in just a minute. If you need a copy, be sure and let me know. All right, are we ready? It's working okay? Good. Once again, if you're doing something else, put it aside. You're a good person. Suffer. All right, Lamb to the Slaughter by Roald Dahl, 1953, part 1. We'll finish part 2 tomorrow. Roald Dahl passed away in 1990, was a British novelist, short story writer, and poet. His books and stories are known for their unexpected endings and often darkly comic themes. The short story describes a woman's reaction when her husband comes home with surprising news. Okay, and this is a good picture, this idea that, the homemaker, the wife stays home and she cleans house and she makes her house pretty and she makes breakfast, lunch, and dinner for her husband and she waits on him. And that wasn't the rule, but it was pretty stereotypical for back in those times, right? Okay, so let's go ahead and start reading. Read along with me. Remember, use your imagination. We're going to make that movie in our minds. The room was warm and clean, the curtains drawn, the 2 table lamps alight, hers and the one by the empty chair opposite. On the sideboard behind her, 2 tall glasses, soda water, whiskey, fresh ice cubes in the thermos bucket. Mary Maloney was waiting for her husband to come home from work. Now and again she would glance up at the clock, but without anxiety, merely to please herself with the thought that each minute gone by made it nearer the time when he would come. There was a slow, smiling air about her and about everything she did. The drop of a head as she bent over her sewing was curiously tranquil. Her skin, for this was her 6th month with child, had acquired a wonderful translucent quality. The mouth was soft, and the eyes, with their new placid look, seemed larger, darker than before. When the clock said 10 minutes to 5, she began to listen, and a few moments later, punctually as always, she heard the tires on the gravel outside and the car door slamming, the footsteps passing the window, the key turning in the lock. She laid aside her sewing, stood up, and went forward to kiss him as he came in. "Hello, darling," she said. "Hello, darling," he answered. She took his coat and hung it in the closet. Then she walked over and made the drinks. A strongish one for him, a weak one for herself. And soon as she was back again in her chair with the sewing, and he in the other, opposite, holding the tall glass with both hands, rocking it so the ice cubes tinkled against the side. For her, this was always a blissful time of day. She knew he didn't want to speak much until the first drink was finished, and she, on her side, was content to sit quietly, enjoying his company after the long hours alone in the house. She loved to luxuriate in the presence of this man, and to feel, almost as a sunbather feels the sun, that warm male glow that came out of him to her when they were alone together. She loved him for the way he sat loosely in a chair, for the way he came in a door or moved slowly across the room with long strides. She loved the intent, far look in his eyes when they rested on her, the funny shape of the mouth, and especially the way he remained silent about his tiredness, sitting still with himself until the whiskey had taken some of it away. "Tired, darling?" "Yes," he said, "I'm tired." And as he spoke, he did an unusual thing. He lifted his glass and drained it in one swallow, although there was still half of it, at least half of it left. She wasn't really watching him, but she knew what he had done because she heard the ice cubes falling back against the bottom of the empty glass when he lowered his arm. He paused a moment, leaning forward in the chair. Then he got up and went slowly over to fetch himself another. "I'll get it," she cried, jumping up. "Sit down," he said. When he came back, she noticed that the new drink was dark amber with a quantity of whiskey in it. "Darling, shall I get your slippers?" "No." She watched him as he began to sip the dark yellow drink, and she could see little oily swirls in the liquid because it was so strong. "I think it's a shame," she said, "that when a policeman gets to be as senior as you, they keep him walking about on his feet all day long." He didn't answer, so she bent her head again and went on with her sewing. But each time he lifted the drink to his lips, she heard the ice cubes clinking against the side of the glass. "Darling," she said, "would you like me to get you some cheese? I haven't made any supper because it's Thursday." "No," he said. "If you're too tired to eat out," she went on, "it's still not too late. There's plenty of meat and stuff in the freezer, and you can have it right here and not even move out of the chair." Her eyes waited on him for an answer, a smile, a little nod, but he made no sign. "Anyway," she went on, "I'll get you some cheese and crackers first." "I don't want it," he said. She moved uneasily in her chair, the large eyes still watching his face. But you must eat. I'll fix it anyway, and then you can have it or not, as you like. She stood up and placed her sewing on the table by the lamp. Sit down, he said. Just for a minute, sit down. It wasn't until then that she began to get frightened. Go on, he said. Sit down. She lowered herself back slowly into the chair, watching him all the time with those large, bewildered eyes. He had finished the second drink and was staring down into the glass, frowning. Listen, he said. I've got something to tell you. What is it, darling? What's the matter? He had now become absolutely motionless, and he kept his head down so that the light from the lamp beside him fell across the upper part of his face, leaving the chin and mouth in shadow. She noticed there was a little muscle moving near the corner of his eye. This is going to be a bit of a shock to you, I'm afraid, he said, but I've thought about it a good deal, and I decided the only thing to do is to tell you right away. I hope you won't blame me too much. As he told her, it didn't take long, 4 or 5 minutes at most, and she sat very still through it all, watching him with a kind of dazed horror as he went further and further away from her with each word. So there it is, he added, and I know it's kind of a bad time to be telling you, but there simply wasn't any other way. Of course, I'll give you money and see you're looked after, but there needn't really be any fuss. I hope not anyway. It would be good for my job. Okay, so she's 6 months pregnant, she's going to have his baby, and he's leaving her. What's going to happen? Go ahead and continue reading, find out, and then answer the discussion questions, and we'll talk a little bit about it towards the end of class.